If you're a fan of not dying, then I have the mod just for you. Adaptation gives you resistance based off the damage type which is being used against you, which is really fun and really cool because it stacks up to 90% for every single different damage type, which makes you more or less like unkillable whenever you're using a frame, which is relatively tanky to begin with, and then you stack things like Arcane Grace or Arcane Guardian and things literally cannot kill you. It's actually kind of crazy. So in today's video, I'm using a Naros, but it can be noted you can use this on a Naros, Nidus, Valkyr, Trinity, Shadows of the Dead, Necros, like literally anything that gives you damage reduction, even Mesa or Gara, for example, you can use Adaptation. The biggest issue that you're going to have is sacrificing a mod to fit Adaptation on. So for example, let's say you want to sacrifice a little bit of duration on Mesa to throw on Adaptation. That's totally fine, but that is up to you to make that sacrifice. Now it is going to completely rely on your own personal build. Now I'm using kind of like a stacked up health Naros Umbral build. So I have my Umbral Fiber, my Umbral Vitality. I've got Primed Vigor on here for even more health. I know like this gives shields as well, but completely ignore the shields. The other great thing about Adaptation, now that we're talking about shields, is it works with your shields as well. So it's not just damage reduction whenever your health is being attacked, it's damage reduction whenever your shields is being attacked as well. So it's just across the board. It's flat damage reduction based off the enemy type, or not enemy type, but damage type that is being shot at you, so it's resistant to that damage type, right? So just reading the stats for the mod, 1 damage plus 10% resistance to that damage type for 20 seconds stacks up to 90%, which is really good. Really good, and you're gonna see that. So we have Arcane Grace, Arcane Guardian, Gladiator Resolve for a little bit more health, and then the rest is just like Hunter Adrenaline for energy, or Stretch for ability range, and then the Augur Message for duration, Cunning Drift for more range, blah blah. It doesn't really matter too much. But let's just go ahead and spawn in Lancers to begin with. Now I'm gonna spawn in Lancers first, simply because these guys like shooting at you. It's more, I guess, what's the word that I'm looking for? More noticeable whenever these guys are shooting at you. And as you can see, I also have my Scarab armor buff up here. So let's just go ahead and stack it up. And then there we go. We got 100%. Get our health back. And we're going to stand in front of these mans. And you're going to see, whenever they start to shoot at me, that whenever my Arcane Grace kicks in, and my other little healing mod on my Sentinel, which I'll show as well, look at my health. Look at my health. It doesn't drop. These guys are level 110. So these are sortie level enemies right here. And they do nothing. They do nothing. Like, I'm not that big of a fan of tank frames, but this mod, like, it makes them a lot more appealing. Because I'm like, I really like playing Valkyr melee only. So, like, throwing this mod on, in particular on my Valkyr builds, like, my Valkyr build has, like, 2k armor and 1.2k health. If I were to swap out something like Gladiator Resolve in my Valkyr builds, whoo, the amount of effective HP I'd get whenever I get all these resistances, it's actually insane. So right now you can see in the top right hand corner all the different things that I'm currently resistant to. So I'm 90% resistant to puncture, 70% resistant to impact, and 70% resistant to corrosive. Now that may be a visual bug, that or they're just not applying those procs enough to me, or that damage type enough to me for me to get that resistance up there, right? So I don't know what necessarily determines like what's elemental damage type or just damage type in general that the enemies are using. Obviously it's bound to be based off, like, you know, what type of enemy it is. So for example, like, let's say that a heavy gunner might deal more impact procs compared to these lancers. Maybe the lancers have, you know, the Dara Vandal or the Dara, for example, which is high in puncture damage, and they have it modded for corrosive or whatever. So maybe it depends on the weapon that the enemies are using that determines that. But dude, like, you take no damage with Grace and Guardian on. It's actually crazy. So I'll show you guys the mod that's on my Sentinel as well. Here is the mod. It is Mediray, so that's going to heal you too. And then you also have Guardian and Grace. So Grace is going to give you health regeneration on damaged, so whenever you take damage, so it's plus 4% health regeneration for 6 seconds, which is nice. And then you have Guardian, which is plus 600 armor for 20 seconds. So that's a lot of effective HP whenever you're stacking those resistances there. Other thing as well is we can do the exact same thing if we spawn in heavy gunners, right? We spawn in these heavy gunners, simulate them. Level 110, so they're sortie level. Let's go ahead and get our buff up here with our Anaris armor. Now, it is important to be using the abilities that your frames have. So, Nidus's Link, Kruma's Vex Armor, Trinity's Blessing plus Link, blah, blah, blah. So, you get that damage reduction too. I'm playing these guys don't knock me off. So, these guys are a little bit more damaging, but you can still see that we have more or less the same effect whenever they're shooting at us, right? We don't take that much damage, and we have more health regeneration than we are taking damage, right? So, because of the amount of resistance you have to the enemy's damage, absolutely phenomenal, like, in terms of health regeneration. So, if you're a fan of tank frames in general, Adaptation is definitely a mod that you want to have on. I don't know if it's going to get patched or changed, because it is quite powerful, but like, it's going to take a lot of effort to kind of get to this point where you're more or less unkillable, right? Because, like, well, in saying that, Adaptation is doing most of the work. Same thing with Grace and Guardian. But having that extra health there, because, like, we could go ahead and we could remove our health mods, right? So let's just go ahead and, that was the meme build. That was the meme build that I had on. Let's go ahead and kill these guys, actually. Kill all these guys. Okay, and we go over here. We go ahead and we equip our Grace, right? We equip our Grace. We equip our Guardian. And then let's say we were to throw on our armorable fiber and our vitality. So that's just armor, which is decent. A little bit more damage reduction on there. Adaptation. Like, this should be enough. Like, we should literally take no damage. So let's go ahead and spawn in the Lancers again. So you don't even necessarily need the health mods. Think of your health mods kind of more like a buffer. So, like, if you do end up taking damage, then, like, you have that health there. So, you know, as you can see, we're still more or less healing more than we're taking damage, right? We're actually back up in the free fuzz and health territory, and we're not going to be going back down. So you don't need to be stacking a lot of health. So, like, with this mod, playing lower level content, you could run just Adaptation with Arcane, Grace, and Guardian and get away with it just fine, you know? Unless there's something like maybe Nullifier bubbles block out the proc. I don't know. But, like, absolutely insane. Like, I don't know if it's going to get nerfed. I don't know if it's going to get changed, but it's crazy. Absolutely crazy how good this mod is. I would recommend picking it up. You get it from the Arbiters. The Arbiters? The Arbitrations. Sorry. I said Arbiters. It's a crazy mod. Crazy mod. Like I said, the biggest issue that you guys are going to have is fitting this mod into your current build. So, like, if you want to run it on Mesa, are you going to give up a little bit of duration? If you're going to run it on Trinity, are you going to give up a little bit of duration as well? If you're going to run it on Anaris, are you going to give up a little bit of range? Which, that's what I did give up on my Anaris build that I showed you guys, like, a minute or two ago. Like, I gave up a little bit of range. So, what will be interesting is seeing how far you can go with that type of build into the likes of a T3, T4 survival or something. So, like, a survival on Mott. Because, like, we don't know, like, your damage reduction is going to fall off at a certain point, right? There's going to be a point where it doesn't matter how much damage you're resisting, the enemies are still going to one-shot you because the enemies have, like, heaps of damage. But this lets you go just a little bit further with tank frames, which, in my opinion, is kind of what they needed. Because, like, whenever I'm thinking about what frame I want to play in a survival or something, then I'm kind of thinking, like, okay, well, Loki can literally disarm every single enemy, so I don't have to worry about that scaling damage that the enemies have, right? Where now I can be all like, well, okay, I have a Naros who has a form of CC, also has, you know, that insane damage mitigation, that insane damage reduction because of Adaptation, and obviously the high health pool as well, makes him just a more viable option, in my opinion, for going deep into the likes of Survivor or whatever, because he doesn't have the strongest CC in the game. It's really good CC, but it's just not the strongest. And usually, like, in my head, whenever I'm thinking about the frame that I want to play the frames that have the best abilities, the best CC, the best healing, blah, blah, blah. But this mod opens up, like, a lot more opportunity for taking more tanky frames, in my opinion, into survival missions and defense missions and stuff like that. So 110%, go ahead and pick up Adaptation if you're a fan of tanky frames. Entirely up to you whether or not you want to use the mod or not. But I think it's a must-have, at least for these types of builds, like Chroma, Anaros, Nidus, etc. And I'm probably going to be working on throwing this onto all of my tanky frames because it is Very, very nice, and I like it. But yeah, other than that, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit that like button below. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, go ahead and hit that sub button below. If you liked the video, hit like. If you disliked it, dislike it, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember if I said that. I'm derping super hard right now. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.